Has a wrestler ever forgot to kick out before? Has a ref just counted 3 for the wrong person? Has a wrestler ever won a match by accident that they weren't booked to win? Well, actually, yes, there's quite a few examples of this taking place, including the time it happened at the grandest stage of them all, WrestleMania, for a title. The scene is WrestleMania 2000, aka WrestleMania 16, you know, the one that had the McMahon in every corner main event, as well as the show that had the first triangle ladder match between the Dudleys, the Hardys, and Edge and Christian. It also had a banger of a triple threat match between Chris Jericho, Kurt Angle, and Chris Benoit, and the card also featured none other than a 12-man hardcore battle royal for the hardcore title. The rules of this match were quite simple. It's 12 men in the ring with a 15-minute time limit. If you get a pinfall or submission, you are the new WWF Hardcore Champion. Whoever is the champion at the end of the 15 minutes walks away as the winner of the match and as the hardcore champion. Crash Holly was the champion going into this match, and after 8 title changes to the likes of Taz, Funaki, and Viscera, Crash Holly pinned Taz with 40 seconds to go and looked to have the match won. Another person featured in this match was Hardcore Holly. Hardcore Holly and Crash Holly were on-screen cousins and had an alliance with the two of them and Molly Holly, and the two had also been feuding over the hardcore title for the last couple of months. And with about 6 seconds left on the clock, Taz has Crash Holly locked in the Katahajime, and Hardcore Holly runs in and decks Taz with a candy jar and then goes to pin Crash Holly with just seconds remaining. Now, what was supposed to happen here is the count begins but doesn't make it to 3. As the clock runs out, the time expires for the match, the 15 minutes is hit. It's a common spot we've seen in these kinds of matches. It's a way to make it so that Hardcore Holly lost on like a technicality. He had Crash Holly beat, but the clock ran over, making it so that Crash Holly only just won. However, their calculations must have been way off with the count, because the referee just randomly stops his count at 3. The commentators are saying Crash Holly kicked out even though he very clearly didn't. The bell has rung by this point, and after some confusion, Hardcore Holly is announced as the winner and new WWE Hardcore Champion. And yeah, as you can tell, this was just not meant to happen. You could tell this was accidental just due to how awkward everything was. The referee stopped count, Crash not kicking out because he was waiting for the time to expire, and just all the awkwardness around it, no one seemingly knowing what was going on and what the result of the match was. Supposedly what happened is that the ref was being relayed a countdown timer in his ear for when the match was going to expire, but it must have been off time or something, because the ref started his count way too early and ended up counting the 3 for Hardcore Holly to win the match and the title. And if you wanted any confirmation that this was just not supposed to happen, well, Hardcore Holly the very next night on Raw lost the title back to Crash Holly. But what about the time Cody Rhodes got in trouble backstage when he was in a 6-man tag team match and his team lost on accident in what he claims is the worst match of his career? The scene is SmackDown in the summer of 2011, and it's a 6-man tag team contest between the teams of Daniel Bryan, Ezekiel Jackson, and Sin Cara, taking on Wade Barrett, Ted DiBiase Jr., and of course, Cody Rhodes. And this match right out the gates just started off as an absolute disaster, as Wade Barrett is kicked in the balls twice by Sin Cara. We get the hot tag spot with Sin Cara tagging in Daniel Bryan and Ted DiBiase Jr. being tagged in by Wade Barrett. However, this spot was botched because Sin Cara was meant to tag in Ezekiel Jackson and not Daniel Bryan. He tagged in the wrong guy. Classic Sin Cara. Daniel Bryan jumps in and gets his vintage flurry of offense in. He's got his hot tag going. He does the jumping lariat, the backflip off the corner, the drop kick into the corner, and then 1, 2, 3. Daniel Bryan went for the cover off of the corner drop kick, what was presumably meant to be a near fall, and DiBiase forgot to kick out. The match just ended like that. Daniel Bryan and Ted DiBiase had been in the match for just seconds. Daniel Bryan had only just started his sequence of offense. and you can tell that when this happens, Daniel Bryan is caught off guard, and that this was just a complete accident. Anyway, the heel team that lost head backstage, where they see Vince McMahon, who is clearly about to let loose on them, and explains to them what happens when you botch the finish like that. However, Cody Rhodes and team managed to avoid punishment from Vince in a pretty unique way, and I'll let Cody explain how it was achieved.
Again, it wasn't my fault. And right before he can say anything to me, Ted Jr. blows by me. No fear. Looks at Vince and says, "Where is that referee? He was trying to fuck on me." And because it was such an awkward, unbelievable moment and an incorrect use of the F word and everything that goes into it, Vince just real slowly put his headset back on, sat down, and we never talked about the worst match that happened ever again.
And the final time to talk about is when a wrestler won by accident and ended up actually getting a push out of it. And yes, you can tell that I'm talking about Kaitlyn. It's the 20th of August 2012 episode of Monday Night Raw, and we have ourselves a Divas title #1 contendership battle royal. And in this match, you got the likes of Eve Torres, Kaitlyn, Natalya, Alicia Fox, and of course, the legend, the GOAT, Oksana. It comes down to the final two of Eve Torres and Kaitlyn, who had been in a little bit of a feud up to that point. Eve Torres had just defeated Kaitlyn in a match on SmackDown that past week, where the winner became the assistant GM, and Eve Torres, like I said, won that match. And Eve Torres was meant to win this match and face Layla for the title at Night of Champions. However, and the final two of the match, Kaitlyn clotheslines Eve Torres over the top rope. Eve is meant to land on the apron, but instead she lands on the outside with both feet hitting the floor, and she is eliminated from the match, giving Kaitlyn the win and making her #1 contender for the Divas title. From Eve, Kaitlyn, and Layla's reaction at ringside, you can tell that this was not the intended result. But regardless, WWE would stride on with it, and Kaitlyn would get a lot more TV time as a result of it. The match between Kaitlyn and Layla for the Divas title didn't actually end up happening, as instead Eve Torres would take on Layla as Kaitlyn was attacked by a mystery person, and Eve would win the title from Layla and hold the Divas championship, and she would begin feuding with Kaitlyn in a storyline where she was suspected to be the one who had something to do with attacking Kaitlyn. And yeah, like I said, Kaitlyn got a push out of this. She was on TV much more. She challenged for the title twice on pay-per-view, first at Hell in a Cell and then at Survivor Series, before in January of 2013, Kaitlyn would defeat Eve Torres to win the WWE Divas Championship. From accidentally winning a #1 contenderships match to actually being the champion in the space of about 5 months. And she deserved it. She'd been putting in good work, and now, yeah, she was the champion. And Kaitlyn had a pretty solid reign with the Divas title in the end as well. She held it all the way until May of that year before she lost it to AJ Lee. The two of them had a great feud for the title. So I guess it goes to show that it's not always a bad thing when something like this happens, and this came out with a good result.